one, now. Missed it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm Rodd Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.
One more day in the home studio here, folks. Tomorrow I'll be back at the Mangum City Library, one of our sponsors. But for now, it's 9 degrees Fahrenheit. I was just talking to our guest a minute ago, and they're cool as well, but not near the Arctic blast that we're getting here in the States. It's kind of crazy for us right now, as you guys here in the States know. But good afternoon to everybody, friends. Welcome to Insights and Straight Talk. As you know, I'm your host, Rodd Duff, and always alongside producer Barbie. And today's conversation is one that is one of those rare ones that doesn't just inform you, it invites you to slow down, to look inward and ask a better question of yourself. Because here's the truth. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence. They don't stall because they lack talent. They don't drift because they lack opportunity. They drift because they never learned how to master their own mind. I've got that issue myself. And that's why today matters. Our guest today is someone who lives at the intersection of discipline, philosophy, and real-world transformation. Not the Instagram kind, not the hype cycle kind, but the quiet, constant kind that actually lasts. Joining us is Jeevan Matharu, performance coach, author of 4 books, Mensa member, podcast host, done well over, I think, getting close to 400, it sounds like something in that range. Podcast host there, founder of the Vancrux Label. Titles don't tell the real story here. Jeevan's path wasn't polished, and it wasn't linear. We talk a lot about that. He was once expelled from a private school for bad behavior. Written off early, labeled quickly, and instead of letting that label define him, he did something most people never do. He asked himself a different question. Not why me, but who do I need to become? That question led him through philosophy, discipline, judo at a national level, financial advisory leadership, deep writing across self-help and fiction, and ultimately to coaching others to build internal order before external success. And that's the thread we're pulling on today. Because in an economy filled with noise, right? In a culture obsessed with shortcuts, in a world that rewards speed over depth, the real edge is still the same, folks. It's clarity, it's discipline, it's your values, and the ability to sit with your own thoughts without running from them, right? Today, we're going to talk about a few things. What it truly means to become a person of value, not as a slogan, but as a practice. We'll explore why asking better questions beats chasing motivation, why discipline outperforms inspiration, and why mindset mastery is not optional anymore. Actually, it's foundational. This is not a feel-good for 20 minutes conversation. This is one of those build something that lasts conversation. And as always, this is a live show. Your questions matter. If something lands on you guys, drop it in the comments. If something challenges you, even better, right? So take a breath, set the distractions down, and join us because if you're capable of more, but something invisible keeps getting in the way, this conversation might help you name it. Now, what do you say? Let's get into it. Sorry about that lag there. How you doing, Jeevan? Hey, you know what? I did not ask you. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Jeevan Matharu is the correct pronunciation. And
Matharu.
I just want to say as well, thanks for the introduction. It always makes people sound awesome. I'm listening to you say that. I'm thinking, wow, is that me?
It is you, because you've asked those questions to yourself, and you've taken that approach. And in fact, like in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, if it's something you don't know about or haven't heard of, but now you're at the place where you're giving other people their voice too. So yes, that was you and more, way more we're going to find out about you.
I think it's interesting, isn't it, that people think that because someone is in a particular place, they have all the answers. I think that's such a bad way to think about things. No one can give you the answers. It's not a case of, I speak to John Smith and he's going to tell me everything I need to do. I need to get this job working in technology and work there for 6 years, then, start my own business, then write a book about it, then start a podcast, and then, go and live in Hawaii and sell margaritas on the seashore. Unfortunately, life doesn't work in that way. Yes, we can get information from books. Yes, we can get information from podcasts. Yes, we can delve within, but it's a measure of curiosity, curious about how we can improve, what we need to improve, and why we want to improve it. I'm very much a person of questions over direction. Unless you know what it is you want to find out, you will never know. So, for example, you could have a Google on your laptop or ChatGPT or any AI that people now have. It's a blinking cursor. The cursor blinks, and it blinks until you say something or ask something from it. And life is very much the same. Unless you ask, well, how can I improve my... I mean, I've got a podcast. I'm still looking to improve and get better. How can I improve my podcast? What should my next book be? Unless I start asking these questions, it's impossible for me to get the answers. I can't ask someone else, what should I do? Because, okay, that might work for some time. That might work for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Yeah. And you get to a point, I don't know if you've heard of the Abilene paradox, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The Abilene paradox is where, imagine you are sitting in a corporate office. The CEO says, right, next month or 6 months, 3 months, whatever the timeline is, we're going to be expanding the company. Everyone sits there in the room. Everyone nods saying, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But at the end of the day, no one actually thought that was a good idea, but no one spoke up. And that's how life can be very much most of the time, is that we are doing things we don't really want to do just because we think everyone else wants to or thinks we should, or even sometimes we think we should when really we shouldn't. So there's a lot of introspective requirements in order to get where you need to go. Whether you're on the Aristotle side, which is everything has a design and it's down to you to find your purpose, or whether you're on the Sartre side, where purpose is something you create yourself. Either end, it's still the same journey.
Let me ask you a question here. If you're going through this process, and by the way, there's almost 400 people on here already. That's quick. That's really quick. I'm excited. This is going to be a great show. Not that it wouldn't have been anyway, but what does that look like? So the first thing I instantly thought when you said around the boardroom, everybody's like, well, okay, sure, yeah, and they're afraid of not speaking up, probably because their boss made that recommendation, maybe. But what does it look like when you're asking yourself that question? Obviously, internally, you need to ask yourself first and make sure you're not just asking questions for the sake of asking why to other people, right? So what does that process look like?
So I think there's no such thing as a stupid question, is there? Because in order to know which question is right to ask, you need to also ask what question is wrong. You need to ask the wrong question. in order to understand what's right. I think, look at kids, for example. They'll ask so many questions.
Oh,
what?
yeah.
How long is it going to be until we get there? What's that for? What's that mean? What's that? What's this? Why are you doing that? And the reason is to get feedback. That feedback is in order for them to change their decisions moving forward. Obviously, most people have cognitive bias, don't they? Whereby they get new information. Let's say they, I don't know. Let's say they take cocaine, and they can read up about it all they want, and they will pick and choose as to whether they think it's good or bad, and they will discount the things that say it's bad, whether it's smoking or something else. Instead, we should use Bayes' theory, which is we take in new information, we then use that to adjust our thought process, and then we change moving forward. But most people, unfortunately, that's human psychology. It's confirmation bias. If you believe that America went to the moon, every article you read will either be, see, that proves that we went to the moon, or that must be a bullshit article because it says that we didn't go. Whereas if you're on the side that we didn't go to the moon, again, the articles that come up and say we didn't go to the moon and the reasons why, you are going to believe those and discount the ones that said that we did, saying they're fake, they're bullshit, it's conspiracies, etc. So it's very much down to your belief system as to how you absorb information into the world as well. So there's a lot involved psychologically that determines how we act. I mean, you've probably seen the Ash studies, the Milgram studies at school, Zimbardo studies, etc. And a lot of the time we are working against ourselves. I don't know if you've heard of the robbers, I think it was called Robber's Cave, the example, the psychological story at all.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Oh, you can? Okay. There is
I see you, though.
Yeah, I noticed that. After we have a little conversation, I'm going to jump out of the studio and then I'm going to jump back in because something happened with my camera. I told you we're on the last day of needing to operate out of the home studio, which is under weather attack. But anyway, I'm sorry. What was the question you were asking there?
I was just saying, have you ever heard of something called Robber's Cave?
I have not. But before you talk about that, the one thing that really has especially excited me about this part of our conversation, you use the word curious, and I have a feeling that's a core of what needs to be done when you have introspection, looking within yourself, because you have to be curious of what actually is the right question, and you have to be asked. I like when you talked about the moon, and we're all politically divided right now, and that's a horrible thing, and that's one of the things that's so important about these conversations. But being curious, that show we had 11,500 and some odd people on, that was about religion, it was about education, it was about things that tie together, that all circle around being curious, having curiosity. Do you agree with that broad statement I just made? And talk for a while because I'm going to leave.
Yeah, I think curiosity is massive. Unless you're curious and want to know more and want to improve and want to know what this book means and what this person thinks, you're never really going to get to the point whereby you understand that. If you're not too bothered about, who wrote this, who wrote that, you're never going to find out. So I think curiosity is massive, it's important. And just coming back to the Robber's Cave example, you mentioned, Rod, that we are divided. They did a thought experiment, or a psychological experiment. It was a real experiment, in fact, where they got two groups of kids. I think it was the Eagles and the Rattlers. They ended up naming themselves. Now, what they did was they gave them tasks to do. So build this or whatever. Now, what happened is they became rivals, like with a football team or soccer team or whatever it may be. Rivalry becomes apparent, and they were calling each other names and saying that we won, ha ha ha. And then what they did is they put them in the canteen together, thinking that maybe the proximity would help to improve the situation. Unfortunately, it didn't. So what they did subsequently was that they created issues within the camps. They broke down the bus. They stopped the water. And what happened is the teams had to work together in order to repair these situations. Now, what that did was it created friendship. It created a bond between those two people. Now, that's how we are manipulated to an extent, divide and conquer, male and female, colours, races, conservatives, Democrats, etc. And unfortunately, what that does is it creates tension. Now, the reason I say that is because it comes back to yourself as well. There can be tension within. You need to be working together towards a goal or set of goals. And coming back to the curiosity side, if you are curious about a range of things, you will do a range of things. Look at someone like Joe Rogan, for example. He's been a comic. He was curious about what that would look like. He's a commentator on the UFC. And obviously, he's a podcast host as well. That curiosity led him to become something. And I think that's really important, Rod. Are you still there, Rod? So let's just answer some of these questions then instead while he's not there. So from Clayton, what does becoming a person of value really mean to you? So let's just put it this way. Are you someone who goes onto job websites and just looks for the best paying job possible? Oh, what's this job? Oh, 100 grand a year. Let me just try and fit myself into that and get paid as much as possible. Life actually works the other way around. You create value that people are willing to pay for. Podcasting, Joe Rogan earns millions because it's there's a value within the podcast has allowed money to come towards it. Same with Amazon. Amazon is a multi-billion-dollar business because it can get goods to you the next day at probably the best price you're going to find, and it's a good website. The service is great, returns are fantastic, and that convenience, that value that's built creates the financial side. Most people start with the finances, and yes, look, I'm not saying don't think about finance, etc., but it's the value first. An app that has been built that creates value then has this capital value attached to it, and it's then sold for millions or billions at a later stage. And that's what I mean by becoming a person of value. Now, in terms of individually as a person, it's yes, becoming valuable in one area, but also across the board. How do you look? How do you speak? How do you negotiate? Are you in good physical health? Are you in a good spiritual state? Because no good being just monetary or having monetary success if the other areas are bad. If you look at the wheel of life, for example, you have career, hobbies, interests, finances, all of these different sections that form part of the wheel. And what you'll probably find is that you're skewed in a different area. Either your hobbies, interests, friends, that life's great, but your finances aren't great, or your career and finances only, and the rest of it is incorrect. So I think that's a massive, massive thing. So hopefully that answers your question. What book on philosophy had to be the biggest impact on you? I think that's a difficult one. I think from a perspective of easy and accessible would be Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, purely on the basis that I'm a real advocate for Stoicism. That is a real good mental toolkit, for want of a better phrase, that helps us to address when we're going through a bad point. So, for example, one of the quotes is, "To be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and raging of the sea falls still around it." Which basically means your life could be going really bad and you're the rock the waves keep crashing against and you aren't bothered. You're going to deal with it. So I think from a mentality standpoint, that would be one. And the other reason is that he didn't actually write it as a book. He wrote it as his own meditations. And because he wrote it as his own meditations, I think that's even more organic than some of the other books. Obviously, look at Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle, etc. But there are so much or so many works out there that it doesn't even have to be a physical book. You could, in fact, look at ideas, concepts, and attributing them to what it is you're going through. So yeah, I think that's that. What's another question that we've got here? How do you eliminate distractions in today's noisy world?
Hey, so, Jeevan, do you mind if Jeevan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, buddy.
Do you mind if what happened is horrible. It was like, oh crap. But for it to happen to a guy that has as many podcast editions as I have done, and all in different formats. At least you probably were like, oh, well, there he goes. It's my show now. Can I have part of it back? Do you mind?
No, have it. No. I just had to carry on because you weren't here. That's all. And do you know what? It's happened to me before as well.
I just screw with you. Oh yeah,
it's happened to me. It's happened to me. I've had a few episodes where it stopped recording. So yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. How have you? By the way, I can actually see your background better now, and I could see that picture right above your head, and it is very close to the one I've got going on back here. That's funny.
It's
How far
crazy.
did you get down? How far did you get down?
So from my side, I can't scroll through the questions, so I just addressed the ones that I could see.
See,
I think I answered 3 questions. I think.
Okay, so let's just pop one, and then can we go back to what that comment where I went off and I fell off I had to restart my whole system and everything. It was crazy, and then I couldn't get the camera, and then my internet went down, and so I had quite a few battles back there in the green room. I may have knocked over those green colored peanuts too by accident. I don't know.
But you're here now, and that's the main thing. And again, that's what we mean by mentality. Look, issues come, and you deal with them, and you get back to where you were or forward. And it sort of comes back to what we were saying when you were off air. I think I answered 3 questions: one about becoming a person of value, and a couple of philosophical ones. And I was just about to address. Again, because you went off air, I was trying to keep it going. I think the next one I was going to address was the distractions one, if I can.
Who was that by? So this one is
David Darnell. It was
David
Darnell.
Donnie Jr.
No, David Darnell. Maybe mine's behind. But I mean, we can answer this one. How do we turn philosophy into practical daily action?
I see. You're way down there. You're towards the end of the questions. Let's do this. Let's go back because I've missed some things, obviously. If you don't mind, they're here. This is their time. I love so much that they're here for a reason because they're learning something just like me. But it's also their time, and I respect their time, and I always try and get everybody's questions and dialed in. Did you address Lady Law Film
I'm
here?
Not in this one yet, no.
How do you define real mindset mastery in daily life? I just think that's a really good question. We'll pop around here a little bit and just have some chill about it. But what do you think of this one?
I think that's a great question because it's so generic and general. And that's what's really important about trying to understand and questioning yourself. So the first question I would ask is, okay, because I could just go ahead and say, look, this is what mindset mastery means. You should be great at this. You should be great at mastering your own emotions. But instead, we need to understand what your goal is. What do you mean by real mindset mastery in your daily life? What does your daily life look like? Are you a professional athlete? In which case, what's the mindset look like for a top performing athlete? Are you someone who's going through a real hard time? You just had divorces, maybe your child's ill, your business is going under. What does that mindset need to look like in order to get the best from it? So I think these general questions that, and it's nothing against the question. I think, every question has its merits. But again, this is why I set secondary, tertiary questions around that. Because I don't think there's one size fits all. Always think this way, always think that way. It's one of the things that I said in my quote book, which is Daily Quotes of Wisdom. I said, look, we're going to have a quote today to go through. You read one quote a day, we discuss the quote, and that's your reading for the day done. Next day, you do the same. And one of the caveats I mentioned at the start of that book is there will be some contradictions. Because sometimes you need to, so I'll give you an example of one. Sometimes they say, don't make the mistake, read from the mistake first, so that you don't make that mistake. Other people are saying on quotes that actually, yes, it's good to read, but we never really learn until we do that ourselves. So although both of those are correct, maybe they could be used in different times. Maybe you can say, look, okay, well, we've got evidence that drinking 17 bottles of alcohol a night is probably going to kill you. And there's hundreds of, examples of that. But other things, sometimes we have to learn it ourselves instead of saying, oh, that business idea, no, it's been tried. Has it? Has it really? Have I tried it? Have I tried it in this particular regard? There's hundreds of apps that have been tried, dating apps. Some do well. Tinder, Hinge, etc. have done well. Others, they've done so badly you don't even know what they are called anymore. No one knows what they're called. How many, great books have been written? How many, in the words of, I can't remember the poet now, will come to me, Charles Bukowski. In the words of Charles Bukowski, if you're going to be an author, don't be one of these authors just that puts libraries to sleep, basically.
Right.
You've got a great poem called If You Want to Be a Writer. Awesome. I'd suggest listening to it. It's quite motivational, even if you don't want to be a writer. But yeah, so hopefully that answers the question from is it Layla Film Law?
Layla, yeah. That was awesome. And it's interesting how we're kind of probing that next level here. You're asking if the question covers the subject that you're needing to be. In other words, are you framing it this way or that way? And that'll depend on different situations and different scenarios, won't it?
I think that will answer her question better, because she's asked that question from her own perspective. Now, what my answer has hopefully done is to go back to her and to her to assess, okay, what did I actually mean by that question? That's right.
Yeah.
What did I mean by real mindset? And that's the difference between like someone like a coach and a quote unquote guru who would just say, yeah, what you need to do is sit down and do mindfulness and breathing exercises every day.
Right.
No, like, although those things are helpful, it depends on the situation that you're in, of course, and your time. So for example, let's say you've got seven kids and they all need to get to school in the morning. You probably don't have time to be doing certain things. You probably don't have time in the morning to do an hour stretching, an hour exercising, and an hour meditation. Although those three things would probably be awesome, it's not compatible with where you are in your life at this point in time. So how do we then address what you should do using the availability of time and resources you have available to get the best from where you are at this point? So we'll use podcasts as an example, right? Because you've got a show and I've got a show. Our challenge as podcast hosts is very different to someone like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has come from a comedy background, so he's got people on his phone who are friends who can just ring up and go, "Hi, John, do you fancy coming on the podcast?" Yeah, we'll have a beer afterwards. Yeah, right. See you tomorrow. Bye. That's he's got a network like that.
Yeah.
From the UFC, hey, whoever the fighter is, Conor McGregor or whatever, do you want to come on the show? Yeah, of course, mate. Sound. And if not, he's got people. That person knows a network, so he doesn't have to worry about how am I going to get good guests on. That's not even in his equation. He's already established that, and it's fine. For people like ourselves, it's okay. How can we improve the content on our podcast? How can we get more viewers, more subscribers? What makes it more interactive? Like, I think this is a great format, for example, with the questions coming in. These sorts of things is how we can, because we're starting from a different level. It's not so people say, well, this business, this Amazon, they do that. They give free returns.
Right.
It must be work. But I was like, mate, you are a startup business. You can't necessarily afford to do all of the things that Amazon can do. Amazon can do it next day because they have such a massive network. The resources there are pretty much endless. You, on the other hand, are going to have to use your DPDs, Royal Mail, whoever else, to get it shipped out. And that's probably going to be expensive. It's probably going to be 3 to 5 working days. But that's what you have to do at the start in order to build up. So yeah, I think there's these questions, what should I do? It's all relative. It's all relativism. It's relative to what? What's the sound of one hand clapping, as they say? Versus two.
Good point. Good point. Would you also, are you kind of directing some of that comment right there at the end that you were just saying towards Clive's quest here, as far as what's one discipline habit? Like is I know it's always different for each situation is different, and each period in your life is different. This is a human experience. It's not linear, like we talked about it in the monologue, right?
Yeah, I think for me, in answer to Clive's question, is most people get overwhelmed by stuff. If I say, look, I'm going to write a book this year, that sounds like a big task. And what happens is we go into anxiety mode. We start looking into the future. Oh my God, I have to do all this research. I'm going to think of characters if you're doing a novel. I'm gonna have to think of a cover, and they start going into this. And what happens is the brain then says, "Do you know what? I can't be asked. I'm not going to bother doing it because it's such an overwhelming task." Even podcasting. If you were starting a podcast today, you'd think, "Oh my god, I've got to think of a name. I've got to do a logo. Right. How am I going to get uploaded? How am I going to do the comments? How am I going to get people to follow? Oh, it's too much effort." I'm very much the one discipline habit for me is to little and often. I only need to write a page a day of a book, and it's a book at the end of the year, 365 days. Look, and there's some days I don't do it, yes, because I've got stacked with other stuff. I've got podcasts on, I've got my coaching clients, or I'm doing judo competitions, whatever it may be. But little and often, I'm going judo after this. I'll do it 4 times a week. I don't do one 25-hour day of judo. I know there's not 25 hours in a day, of course. That was the joke. I don't do 25 hours. I do it little and often because it's the whole hare and tortoise thing, isn't it? Eat a pizza one slice at a time. That whole, analogy, that whole, weird sort of explanation for breaking it down. But it's true. Instead of being overwhelmed by stuff, just think about it little. Do you know what? Emails. Oh, I've got so many emails. Just send 2 a day. That's almost 700 emails at the end of the year. 700. Yeah. Even if you get, 10% of that, 70 responses. And then you get 10% of that. 7 of what? 7 guests, 7 clients, 7. So it's about persistence. Okay, here's a really good one. I don't know if you've heard of the pottery experiment.
I have not.
So there's 2 groups, right? The teacher goes, right, we're going to split you into 2 groups. We're going to do a quality and a quantity group. The quality group, they just have to make 1 amazing vase. 1 amazing vase, that's it. The quantity group, you have to make as many vases as possible. Okay. At the end of the term, who made the better vases?
The one.
Who do you think made the better? You think the quality guy? Yeah.
Quality guys, who I would guess.
No, the quantity people made the better.
Oh, did they get better as they were doing it?
That's it, exactly. So the quality people, they were thinking, they were thinking, oh, how can we make it better? And doing this procrastination essentially. The quantity guys, they just started learning how how it moved. After about fucking whatever the number will be, 1,000, they understood the clay. They didn't think about. They didn't. Theorize about the clay. They did and dealt with the clay. And this is it. Quality comes from quantity. People, perfectionists, I don't want to start because I'm going to be shit. You're going to be shit. Go back and listen to my first few episodes of podcasting. Absolutely awful. Go back to looking at my first guests on people's podcasts. Awful. And I'm not saying I'm great now. I will look back at myself in 5 years' time and go, wow, you've come on so much less ums. Well, there's one there, for example. You have to retrospectively look at yourself for improvement. So, yeah, I think it's all up here. And what's the difference between a champion and someone else?
I remember at that time as well, same thing, first shows, producer Barbie and I did, it was solo. You know how you just, like I do Friday night behind the mic, which typically is just myself. But anyway, my point being, not only was it shit, but I couldn't think about things to say. 500 shows later, obviously, we were talking about that show we just did for 3 hours a couple of days ago, right? I couldn't get 24 minutes out of myself even back then. So you're right, that repetition really makes a big difference. And then things become lived now. You talked about they understood the clay. They it's more than just knowing that if you go like this, it'll bring the clay up. It's understanding at deeper levels. The more times you become repetitive, and you mix that with curiosity, that's a winning combination you're talking about for people right there.
Correct. And this is it. You just have to get started. You just have to start, whatever it's going to be. You're going to be shit to start with. The world champion boxer was not just the world champion boxer from day one. He went in as a beginner, the same as you, and he's better than you, yet he's been punched in the face 100,000 more times probably.
Yeah.
So take that as you will. You know, I don't know what else to say, really.
Absolutely. What do they say? My youngest son was a huge baseball, played all the way into college, and then started at Tennessee and decided I don't want to play anymore. But I picked up something from that time. They say that you have to hit 10,000 well-struck baseballs. You have to hit 10,000 of them for a habit to become ingrained in yourself. And, you know, it's that kind of thing that we're referring to. And about the procrastination, I got this book to read. I always remember this one quote. You probably heard of it. Sorry, I'm at the home and my dogs are here with me, and one of them's deciding she wants to be an actress now. But you've heard of Swiss cheese, right? So just drill holes in it until it starts to, you know, become a lesser thing, right? This kind of discussion, this kind of work that you do is so important for so many people today, because it's such a loud world that we live in today, isn't it?
100%. And coming back to the baseball example you used, I was talking about this the other day with regards to tennis. What percentage of points do you think Federer won over his career?
Yeah, I've seen these guys do these, and it blows your mind. I don't know the answer, but it's got to be, let's say 100,000. I don't know.
No. What percentage of points?
Oh, did he lose?
No. What percentage of points did he win over his career?
Oh, probably like 50. It'd have to be over 50, I think. 52? 55?
Yeah, 54. Yeah, 54.
Wow.
So he did it. So
it blows your mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, it blows your mind.
One of the best.
You should think
known
he's
all over the
80%.
world. Known all over the world for what he does, and it's like the best baseball players in the world. Tennis, we're going back and forth in sports, but they miss. They only get on base three out of 10 times. The Hall of Famers, you know.
Correct.
Great point. How can someone stay? This is a great question here. How can somebody stay consistent in that, knowing that? So yes, we have to get to a point where I can hit 10,000 balls, or get to a point where I can win at least 54% of my points, which means I have a lot of work to do, which isn't always easy. So there's motivation, and then there's this dedication to consistency. How does that come together?
Well, it's actually, you know, part of Anita's question, isn't it? How can someone stay consistent when motivation fades, which leads brilliantly on to what we're talking about.
Exactly.
And some people say motivation is bullshit. I disagree. I think motivation is the catalyst to start, but discipline is what gets you through. You might be motivated at day one, but day 2, day 3, you're like, oh, I can't be asked. I really can't be asked to do it. But discipline is what gets you through. It's not an answer of, oh, well, it's always going to feel great. But there are things you can do to help yourself do things. There's two options, isn't there? There's a carrot and the stick. One is you give yourself a carrot to chase. If I do this, I get to go out and have a beer, whatever. Or you could use a carrot in a different way. Imagine the project when it's done. Monetary, girls, if you think it's going to get you girls, whatever, I don't really care. Or it could be the stick. You can force yourself to do it. So it depends on how you work best. It seems to be nowadays the carrot seems to be the better option. Back in the day, people used to get hit with canes, and it used to be discipline the stick rather, that used to create discipline and respect and all those sorts of things. Nowadays, it's more carrot based typically. Whether I think that's right or wrong is irrelevant. I would probably say I'm probably on the side of the carrot as well, but some things I require the stick, especially when you need the extra few reps. There's no carrot there when you need the last few reps. It's a stick. Someone has to force you, look, 2 more reps or whatever 5 more turn-ins for judo, whatever it's going to be. So I think that's a massive thing. Another thing I would say, and this is kind of a side piece on motivation. Have you ever heard of the funeral thought experiment? The funeral speech thought experiment.
I have not. No.
So imagine you're in a funeral, and you look around the room, and you look up at the front, and it's a picture of you, and it's your funeral. And people are talking. They're like, "Oh yeah, this John guy. He was all right. I think he weren't too bad. He was half decent." Now that's what they say now, based on what you are or who you are, what you've accomplished or whatever. The question is, what would you want them to say? You'd want them to say, "Oh, he was, generous, successful." So the question is, where's the discrepancy between the funeral speech that would be said and the funeral speech that you want them to say? That's the motivation. That's motivation there to get you to that point. It could even be second death. Do you want to leave a legacy? They say people die twice. Once is when they die, and the second is when people stop saying their name. Do you want to leave an impact where people will never forget your name? Muhammad Ali, to name one, JFK, to name another. Those names live on because people continue to talk about them. Unfortunately, if you're a run-of-the-mill John Smith, by the time your kids die, no one will ever talk about you ever again, and you'll be down into the ether. Unless, of course, someone goes back and looks at a family tree and says, "Oh, John Smith. Oh," but they don't know anything about them. They don't know that he worked, at a warehouse all of his life or whatever that may be. And look, I'm not putting people into just their careers. That's not what I mean by that. But it's just an example to say, what would the novel look like in John Smith's world versus Elon Musk's world? Completely different novel, biography.
What's kind of not, I don't want to say scary, but what's interesting. I don't want to say interesting. Not quite enough. Scary is too much, but something in there. What you're saying right now, when you die twice, the second death is when your name is, or you are not talked about again. That's your second death. My point being is, you obviously a true thing, but what's kind of quirky about today, or whatever the right word is, you're actually seeing those videos on social media now. I think of one that's going around that's kind of popular now, and it's these voices of encouragement, or those self-help kind of different cat cuts and so forth. But this one shows a person evaporating and talking about this. This is, I think, something that's on people's minds more than ever than it's been before, or just social media is a platform to be able to people express their minds, and maybe it's always been that way. But there is that concern about never being spoken on somebody's lips again, long after you're gone, obviously. But that's an interesting point, isn't it? I think do you think it's growing, that concern is growing more now, or is it just something we see more now?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is that for every general, there has to be 1,000 soldiers.
Right.
Not everyone can, unfortunately, be that person. Some people don't even want to be. Some people just want to go to work.
Yeah.
And that's successful for them. Success is a broad scale. They're like, "Do you know what? I've got a job. I like it, and I can afford to fund my hobbies, and I don't have to stress out. I can go out with my mates whenever I want, have no responsibility." That is success to them, and that's the thing. And again, that's why these open questions are great, because we have to. It breaks down specificity within that. Not everyone wants to be a CEO that gets paid £10 million a year.
Absolutely
stressed out, never sees their family. They have to go in these stupid meetings, corporate politics, sack people, all of these sorts. Some people don't want to do that. Some people want just a simpler life. Fine. Some of the most happy people, some of the happiest people you'll see rather, are those that have got a hobby and they monetize their hobby and they earn a basic earning, but they are getting paid to do what they love to do. They are some of the happiest people you'll ever meet in your life.
Producer Barbie and I had a conversation. It's been a few months now. It was the end of last year, I think. But anyway, we talked about what I'm doing here now, right? This show. And she made a comment that she's very famous for her, what's called Barbieisms. That's a Substack thing. It's another story, whatever. But she made this comment. She said, Rodd, she said, I built up a machinery business over 30 years. We had 30 people at its height, plus, subcontractors and all that. We built machinery. anyway, and then I wound that business down. I had some things that happened mentally, blah blah blah, you know, all the things that I could have used you for a long time ago. But she made this comment. She said, "You know what, Rodd?" She said, "The machinery business you built that up. It is what it is. It was what it was because of your ego. That was an ego-driven thing. I want to be this and that. But this is done out of love. This is my mission. I am much poorer now, much poorer now than I was then. And my lifestyle is different. And I've never been happier in my life than now. So to your point, example, that was perfectly said. Now here, let's flip it a little bit. You may want to comment back on that, but I like what I said that because I'm the one who's have been making all these mistakes. What's the biggest mistake people make in self-improvement? What about I can't see the word. Is it Dirk
Cube or something?
I think it's a great question, and I personally want to hear your answer.
So I think there's two parts to this. I think first of all is that people are afraid of failure. So self-improvement, they think, oh, I just want to keep improving, and it's a case of, if you look at a wave, for example, a wave has a crest and it has a drop, or a mountain has a peak and a valley. You cannot have a peak without a valley, otherwise it wouldn't be a mountain. You have to have both, and unfortunately, self-improvement does go through periods of ups and downs. It's not a linear process. You're going to go through. Look at Peter Jones, the dragon from Dragon's Den, which is, I think, the equivalent to Shark Tank in the States.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
He made 150 million, lost it all, went bankrupt, and made it all back because, well, he failed first of all, but they took away his money. But what they couldn't take away was his business acumen, the contacts he'd made, what he'd learned in business, etc., etc., etc. So it's not about what you have all the time. It's about what you're becoming or who you are that's important. I think the second part of self-improvement that people get wrong is, have you ever heard the phrase "jack of all trades, master of none"?
Yes.
What does that mean to you, that quote?
It means that you're constantly bouncing around doing different things, but never really becoming good at or the best at any one of those.
But do you know what the full quote actually is?
I do not.
It's jack of all trades, master of none, oftentimes better than being a master of one. That's actually the original quote.
You know what? Oh, that's so wild.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite.
Yesterday said somebody, it was either yesterday's show or the day before. We were talking about that, not the jack of all trades. I put it differently, but he said the end of that, and I didn't even catch it then. Say that again, that whole phrase. Say that whole phrase again.
So it's not just jack of all trades, master of none. It's jack of all trades, master of none, oftentimes better than being a master of one. So how people quote the quote is the opposite of what the quote meant.
Yeah.
So the quote is basically saying sometimes.
Why is that?
And
why is that?
It's part of this answer regarding self-improvement. It's people seem to see that you have to be the best at one thing, which I get it. I agree with that. But you also have to be jack of all trades. You have to you have to be in a good physical shape. You have to be able to talk and to sell, because everyone sells, whether you like it or not. You're selling yourself to your partner, to your kids.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's the only way money moves hands.
You have to be in a good spiritual place. And that's what I mean by jack of all trades. You have to have all of these parts to be the best version of yourself. It's not, well, I've got 10 million. What have you got? Okay. but you can't string a sentence together. You haven't done anything of merit. You are working for someone else. You haven't created anything of your own. You're a consumer. You're not a creator. So it's not just about the monetary relativity. It's about the internal growth. Now, some people are just internal growth. So, you get these gurus and stuff that just sit there all day. If you were to objectively look at what they're doing, they are just on the growth side. They're not worried about any of these other external things. It's just internal growth. That in itself could be an issue. If you look at Aristotle's golden mean, on one side it's generosity and one side it's stinginess. It's be somewhere in the middle. And by generous, I mean overly generous, where you just give everything away, buy everyone drinks, and stinginess, where you don't give anyone anything. That's the opposite ends of vices. So we should try and be in the middle with most of them. Have a look at those. Aristotle's golden mean is quite important.
Wow. It's fascinating how much more we can develop in our own life. You know, you talk about quality and quantity, and then you talk about finding something that gives you pleasure and make it your income, your job, right? You know, these things tie together, and you know what centurions are, right?
100 years or 1,000 years.
Yeah, 100 years. People who live 100 years, that's the title of centurion, right? Have you heard about the study that they've done on how centurions become centurions?
No.
They did this study years and years ago because they found some pockets around the world of pockets of centurions, so they could study and compare. And so, okay, hey, we can figure out how do you live longer, right? What's the fountain of youth? So there's one right here in Kansas, a neighboring state, and there's reasons why there's these pockets, and like what they found out, it wasn't the food. It was different food, different elevations, different weather, different types of people. You know, as far as melatonin. What they found out is that these pockets of people, they had a mission in life. Like the monks, right? There's a pocket, right? There's a church, the Mormons, you know, are near here, and there's a pocket because these people have a mission in life. So, you know, you talked about being defined by your work when you started that part of the conversation on, and you know, some people are happy that way, and that's a mission. Hey, look, man, I get to hang out with my mates. I don't have any issues. This, that. But when you find that mission, it ties into what you're talking about in the mission, right? For instance, with Danny here, how do you turn philosophy into daily action? So
again,
it's.
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. That's fine.
I was going to say another general question, because philosophy means, like, as in what type of philosophy? So there's more than this, but there's three core parts. There's ethics, epistemology, and metaphysics. Yeah.
Wait. What was that second one? Epistemology? What was that?
Epistemology.
What is that? I'm not familiar with
I'll explain it all now. So you've got ethics, epistemology, and metaphysics. So there's more than that, of course, philosophy of mind, etc. But you need to establish where you sit in those key areas. So, for example, let's say in metaphysics, which is the understanding of why we're here, religion, all of that sort of things. You know, whether you're monotheistic, i.e., you're Christian, Judaism, Islam, or whatever. Polytheistic, which is Hinduism, for example, where there's multiple gods, or you're atheist, or you're pantheistic, whatever the term is. Then, if that's your philosophy in that area, how do I live my life in order to align with that? In ethics, how do we live day to day? Are you nihilistic in respect that you think life is meaningless? In which case, what does anything matter anyway? Are you a stoicist, where you think, you know, it's all about being calm in any situation? Are you existentialist in respect that you believe you can make your own destiny? Are you deterministic? Where you think that everything's already defined for you, in which case, fuck it, see what happens? Or do you believe in free will, in which case you can define your free will? Now, I'm somewhere in the middle with those two, but we probably won't go into that. But again, we need to establish what our end goal is. What do you mean by it? Because look, how do you turn philosophy into practical daily action? What philosophy are you trying to embody, first of all? That's what I would ask. And I think I get where you're coming from. It's trying to say, how can we be philosophers? And comes back to what I said at the very start. Ask questions. How can I improve? What am I doing wrong? Listen to synchronicities out there as well, because synchronicities do happen. You know, where you have dreams about something and then they come true. It happened with Carl Jung, which is where the term came from. I think.
What was that term?
Synchronicities. Have you ever had something where you think the phone's going to call, or you're thinking about a friend and he rings you 2 seconds later? or
100%.
or you're thinking about an idea and someone says something to you, oh, you should do that, and they don't even know that you had this idea. Or you're thinking about something and it happens, or you're thinking about an actor and they come on TV 2 seconds later. All these things are synchronicities, and some are just, weird, but other times they are there to tell you or guide you to a path. Compliments are another one. People very rarely want to give compliments. People don't like giving compliments because it's difficult for them to say, do you know what, you're awesome at that. If people do give compliments, they're genuine, for want of a better word. If they think that you're a great cook, great barbecue guy, they will tell you. And if you hear that hundreds of times, maybe you should be doing that. It's like, when you're really good at something, here's a really good point. When you're really good at something, you never have to tell someone you're good at it. Do you think Lionel Messi or Tom Brady has to tell anyone they're good at their sport?
No.
Because other people tell them. What do you think, when anyone sees those guys, what do you think they say to them first thing?
You're the GOAT, or you're the best,
awesome.
or you're my hero, or you're awesome. Yeah.
So when you're good at something, people tell you. When you think you're good, you tell other people, oh, I'm well good at snooker, I'm well good at pool, I'm well good at this. And then you play them and they're usually shit. When other people are like, oh, mate, don't play him at pool. Like, you've probably been to the pool bar or whatever, pool club, and there'll be people there like, don't play with him, he's awesome. And he's just chilling. You don't need to do anything. So, and it's the same with compliments in general. Sometimes the compliments are there to guide you to something. Oh, your books are awesome, or your podcast's awesome, or you're that build. Do you build that house? Awesome. Whatever. Designing a room. A lot of girls are very good at that. Designing a room to feel homely.
Yeah, producer Barbie blows my mind.
And they do that where they go into interior design. So we have to look at what our natural attributes are, because look, people say just keep working hard, keep grinding, keep working hard. Okay, cool. I'm going to start sprinting today, and I'm going to work 20 hours a day, have 4 hours sleep to be the fastest sprinter in the world. Unfortunately, I'm 5'10", and let's just say not of a certain ethnicity, and therefore I will never be the fastest 100-meter sprinter in the world.
Let me ask you something.
Facts.
Let me ask you something. You've got facts there. What about the person? You made me think of this, and I know you continued down the conversation a little bit further than where I was, where this thought came in. What about the people, and they're out there, where somebody says, man, you are really good at da-da-da, or man, you nailed that, or this, or you look really good today. I love the way that dress or that suit looks on you. And those people that don't just say, oh, shucks, what about those people that are like, they reject the compliment? I know we moved a little past compliment, but I wanted to grab that. You know what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of the time that can come down to self-image and self-esteem and things like that.
Right.
Whereby people see themselves as low and they don't want to accept the compliment because they have this 5 out of 10 view of themselves, when actually they are now past that. They've grown past that, but they still are stuck in this trauma or whatever else. They've had a bad childhood, parents didn't love them, they were bullied at school, etc., 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 etc. And that's why that happens. And they then go down the self-sabotage route and do that. Well, obviously, there's major fears, isn't there, in life? Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being judged by other people, imposter syndrome, etc., etc., etc. And we have to understand, and this is part of life, isn't it? It's to be a mind outside of your own mind. Because there's instances, if you're scared of something, you're like, oh shit. But if you are the person outside of your mind, like, oh my God, I just got scared. Why did I get scared? Okay, cool, let's calm down. That's like metacognition, isn't it, to an extent? And look, just because, and it comes back to Solomon's paradox, isn't it, as well? He was really good at giving advice, King Solomon. He was the best. He was the guy to go to. But his life was awful. His life was awful in some respects, because just because you're good at giving advice doesn't mean that you're good at actually handling it. And the other thing is, actually, you might know a lot and you actually might be super smart, but life just doesn't go your way. You could do all of the right things, and unfortunately, life does not go your way. It's the moral. It's the moral. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a moral experiment.
Equivalency?
No. It's the experiment, the moral choice experiment or something like that. So basically, it'll come to me in a second. So moral chance, basically, the moral chance experiment, I think it's called. So imagine you've got two drivers, right? Both drunk drove. One drove home, got home fine. Someone took the same route and they killed someone. And only because someone fell off the curb when they were driving past. Who's the worst person? They both did the same thing. They both drunk drove home, which is the thing. But one killed someone. So then is it deontology or utilitarianism? Utilitarianism is based on the result. Oh, well, he killed someone on paper. He's the bad guy. Okay. But you both did the same thing. Deontology is saying it's based on the action. You drove home drunk under the influence. And where I'm going with this is you could do all of the right things and life still doesn't work out for you, unfortunately. There's clever people who have done the right things. They've started businesses. They've done great things. But sometimes things don't always work out your way. And you have to take that on the chin and be ready to go again. You have to be ready to go again. You know, the whole phrase, get up 8 times, 4 down 7 or whatever. I don't like that phrase just because it's impossible to get up 8 times if you've fallen down 7, first of all. Because if you fall down once and you get up once, two, you can only get up as many times as you fall. And so it's kind of a stupid quote, but it's the principle of the quote that's important, is to get up an extra time. Yeah. Some people say it's because you get up in the morning. That's the first one. You know, however you want to portray it. But yeah, we have to understand that even if things don't go our way, so what? You're here to try and do something or build something. Are you someone who's consuming more than you produce? If so, it's like Robert Greene says, if you're on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect.
Yeah, great point.
It was called the moral look problem, by the way. It just come to me. It was called the moral look problem. The
moral look problem.
Look,
yeah.
LUCK, moral look.
Oh, luck. Oh, wow.
Because it's a look, isn't it, of the drive? It's a look of because the morals are the same. You drove, but it's the look of what happened. So that's the moral look problem. And again, it's extrapolatory to other scenarios as well. So
we've asked for Clayton here. We've talked all around this conversation and all around the different aspects of getting that. We're in the gym right now. I mean, because your mind's a muscle, right? We're working it out pretty well here. I love the direction or the lens, the direction that you go at in providing this information. It's what we should constantly be doing and asking ourselves. And every answer also has a broader ability to have more. So in all of that, direct question. So what is becoming a person of value? What does that look like to you? Because our own definition of what we want in life is always different. But how can we answer Clayton here?
Well, I answered this when you were off air. I think.
Oh, you did?
It was the exact same question as well, but I can answer it very briefly again, just for obviously yourself and your answer.
I would appreciate that. I like it,
and I'll do a shortened version if I can remember sort of what I said, because I tend to just whatever's off the dome, as they say. But people tend to look for, let's say, you're looking for a job, you're going to try and type in online, what jobs are paying me 100 grand, and then try and okay, I'm going to try and get that job. I'm going to try and get that job, but you're not really that valuable. If you were that valuable, it's like look at NBA players. They get paid sponsors, millions. They get called up going, can we pay you $100 million to wear these trainers?
Right.
Imagine you got that phone call. It's like beautiful girls. How many messages do they get? Because they're so valuable, people come to them. So instead of trying to just chase stuff, how about building value? I talked about the apps. Look at, people make an app because it's of value. Tinder and Hinge and things like that have stayed around. But how many people failed at making apps that didn't quite make it? Amazon, the reason it's such a multi-billion-dollar company is because it can get products to you the next day or the same day at a reasonable cost, probably the best cost you're going to get, free returns, all of this sort of stuff. And that's what builds the wealth of the business. It's because of the value that it creates. So focus on value first. And if we're talking about ourselves, coming back to the jack of all trades, try and be as valuable as you can as a person across all domains, but obviously ideally in one as well to help with the financial side, but just as a general, consensus for yourself as well.
This show, I knew in the beginning this is going to be a fun show. It's already been an hour, and we've only
that's crazy.
About half. I know, it's just flying by. Thank you very much for all the good. I've said this only a few times, but we talk about all these different guests that come on. They're experts, so I'm really fortunate because I get to learn something new or reinforced or looked at from a different direction every day of the week. Free advice, day in and day out. That's basically what this show is. It's here. Let's try and get this stuff through Rodd's thick head. If he keeps being repetitive, someday he'll get pretty darn smart at a few different things.
So go on.
I was just going to say, but to this point, every once in a while, somebody comes on that is that next level kind of thing, right? And I, this is a compliment. I don't mean to be so complimentary here or dramatic, but you talk to a lot of people in a year and a half, and every once in a while somebody comes in and just opens your mind up more, a little bit more. And I really love that. And that's what I love so much about this show. And that's what you're doing today. And it's really a lot of fun. I mean, an hour has gone by and like that fast. That's very cool. I appreciate this show from you.
Thank you. And look, and it comes back to value, the same thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
A good show is going to be value across the board. You learn something, I learn something, the guests feel like they've learned something. And it has to be a great business is one that everyone gets value, employees get paid, the business makes money, customers are happy. The businesses where people try and shaft people early on, too high prices, not paying employees, trying to inflate prices, all these sorts of things. Unfortunately, they're the businesses that fold. And and there's so much you can talk about even within that. You can go into morals with regards to pricing. You can go into lots of different things. And these are what these sorts of ideas and thoughts help to really define what you are as a person. It's like the Heinz moral dilemma talking about pricing. Is if your mother, your brother, your dad, your sister was dying, would you steal medicine that was overpriced in order to save them?
Ooh,
the answer is yes, of course, because if you look at the maths equation, there is stealing is less bad than saving someone's life. That's if the greater than and equal to. That's how your mind would end up working that out. We're saying someone I care about requires a life-saving medicine. Stealing is less bad than saving someone's life. Therefore, I'd probably do it. And I'm not saying I would do that or you would do that, but that's how the mind would do that logically in terms of mathematics because of the emotion involved as well. And this is why it's important to understand how your mind works and operates, because unless you understand, you can not really work in the best way possible, if that makes sense.
You can't know what you don't know, right? And that's a perfect lead into what we're talking to what Jack's asking here. And I'm going to change the question a little bit, because anything can be learned, obviously. But he's asking, can discipline be learned later in life or must it start out young? Unfortunately, most of discipline, being a disciplined person, being able to, get that is something we learn as we go through, and depending on how much exposure we have to things like sports, which are good teachers of that kind of thing. But anyway, my question is, how do parents and us, how do we get kids starting? Because we do a lot with kids here on the show. How do you get that started? And two, is there a difference? So if you start off in that, I know it's easier because the chemicals come from your brain to make your body do the actions of whatever. You mentioned that earlier. But is it better earlier than later? Is how I'm going to adjust his question there just a touch, Jack's question. Do you see where I'm going with
Yeah,
that?
I think it depends, because sometimes when people learn things early, or they are told things, they don't really understand it. There's a difference between
I didn't even think of that.
there's a
Yeah,
difference between knowing something and understanding something. It's like,
sure.
for example, I know
Touché.
I know what American football is, but I don't really understand American football.
Yeah.
So you can know
Yeah.
something as a child, but do you really understand
Mm.
discipline? So I think that coming from a different conscious head as you're older can be a better place for you. But I also think it depends on who's around you, because parents can be too strict or they can be too lenient. There's a balance in the middle. If you're too strict, the kids become great liars, because they learn to lie. They're like, I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna pretend I was somewhere else, and they become really good liars. If you're too lenient, they can get away with murder. But if that goes well, that person can have a lot of respect and they become self-reliant. So I think it depends on individuals, depends on personalities, it depends on a lot of things. I don't think it's about early or late. It's just about learning it at some point. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So let me just keep kind of moving down and catch a couple of these here, because we've still got a ton of questions coming in. From David, how do you eliminate distractions in today's noisy world? We talk about this world being noisy all the time. It's only going to get more so as AI continues to speed the world up, right?
Okay, well, we can come on to AI probably as well. I've got some interesting views on that as well. But how do we eliminate distractions? How do we eliminate distractions? First question: what is your distraction? Because that's what you're really asking, David. You're not asking for, how can distractions, how can we eliminate distractions? The question is, what are you distracted by, and what are you meant to be doing? Because if you're distracted by your phone and you're meant to be doing emails, then it's clear that you need to eliminate the phone for a period of time, or a certain number of hours a day, or change how you operate. Like even the room that you're sitting in, for example, if the distraction is TV.
What's the carrot or the stick in that example there?
So the carrot and the stick would obviously to get rid of the phone.
Yeah.
The carrot would be, you say, look, you're not having the phone, it's going in a safe. That's a stick. Hard.
Yeah.
The carrot would be to say, okay, you can have the phone, but you can have the phone 5 minutes every hour. That's a carrot. That's where you're rewarding the phone for discipline. So you put like you can put. I think you can put timed locks on your phone. There's apps that do that. There's apps that do timed locks. So you could say 55 minutes lock, 5 minutes reward on the phone. 55 minutes off, 5 minutes reward on the phone. So look, you have to find something that works for you. That was just off the cuff. I've never been asked that question. So, but that's how I would think about it. Is like, okay, one is to get rid of the distraction, and two is to manage the distraction. Yeah. It's like, if you've got a kid that hangs around with bad friends, do you try and just move city, or do you try and manage the situation? Are you just going to keep moving and hiding away from problems, or are you going to manage problems? So it's a difficult one. I've answered that one as well. Exact same question from Clive.
What was the book?
It was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's accessible, it's not too complex in terms of like Nicomachean Ethics is written. So I'll probably say that.
Hey, before we move on, can you do me a favor and throw your contact information in the private chat over there to your right? I think it is probably.
Let's look.
And I'll set Cody up here a little bit. We've got a couple more questions. It looks like.
So private chat, yeah.
Yeah, in the private chat, and then I'm going to ask the question out loud. And when that light pops up on my private chat, I'll copy and paste it over onto these comments. So like we talked about earlier, how can leaders create value beyond financial success? And, earlier we were talking about age and whether it's quality or quantity okay, perfect. We're talking about, quality versus quantity. And so financial success is for some people is very important, obviously, and for a lot of people it is. But in a world of value, creating value in yourself, if you're starting that from the inside out, you're asking yourself questions. You're realizing that a carrot and a stick makes a difference in your world. There's a whole lot more than financial in success when you're talking about success, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, look, as Cody's asked, how can leaders create value beyond financial success? Well, is that leading in a corporate environment or outside? Because within a corporate environment, money does have a relative to how good you are as a leader. Not always, of course. But I think that businesses should look at other metrics, not just financial, but employee satisfaction. People, do they actually trust your decisions, or do they challenge your decisions? Are you a leader or a manager? Because I think there's a big difference. A leader leads by example. It's do as I do. Whereas a manager is do as I say, and I'll do what I want, basically. So I think that is what I would say there, is that we have to look at other metrics as how we can measure leadership as opposed to just financial, because just because of the capitalist nature we live in, it's only finance. But okay, back to that individual, I forgot the name now, but think of all the businesses you've ever worked at.
Sorry, you're talking about Cody here, right?
Yeah. Which were the best businesses that you ever worked at? Were they ones that were the wealthiest, or were they ones with the best community where everyone respected the leader? They went out together. They had, beer down the local bar. Because at the end of the day, look, if you are a successful leader, let's say, I live in Leicester, England. Let's say I become even better as an individual. I become a better leader of the household, the business, whatever. My household becomes better. My family becomes better because I'm a better father, I'm a better dad, whatever, better leader, better CEO, whatever. My road becomes better, my town becomes better, my country becomes better. So I think whatever you're going to do it as well as you can. And look, as I said, even if you do the right thing, sometimes you can fail, the whole moral look problem. But you've got to try. You've got to try.
Well, I love the way you put the difference between a leader, and a boss. People don't leave a job because of the work; they leave it because of the person that was their boss, more than likely. Right? So somebody. What's that?
So come on, carry on.
I was just going to say, whatever. You're left. You're leaving a place because of the mindset of that place, right? For example, and I loved how you separated a leader from just being a boss, right? Because a leader is somebody. For instance, kids learn more from what we do by watching us as parents and the other adults in the house than by us talking to them or punishing them or instructing them. So much more is learned by watching, and they watch to try and understand what we're leaving them, as a world, right?
Correct.
And that's how much that's much of how they learn. We don't look at that as adults, I don't think, enough.
Yeah, I think part of that as well is the Gollum versus Pygmalion effects, whether it's for kids or corporate. The Gollum effect is where, let's say I say to someone, you're so messy, you're so shit at this job, you never clean up, you never do this. Do you know what happens? They become more like that. It's been proved psychologically. And that's coming back to what you said earlier about self-image. Don't take compliments, is because sometimes someone's created that self-image of that person that they just fall into that. Yeah. And they keep falling into that. So instead, the Pygmalion, which is the opposite of Gollum effect, is you say things like, thanks for being so clean today. I always knew you were this clean. And they're like, fuck, I am this clean. Yeah. And they become more like that. And that's when you know you've had a good boss, because good bosses will say, I always knew you were going to smash that. I know you're going to smash it, rather than, have you missed a deadline again? Have you not sent that email again? Are you telling me you're not staying after work again? Like, yeah, it's night and day. So I think that's the thing you can even do with kids. If your kid is a particular way, if they never clean their room, it's probably partially your fault. You're probably saying, you're so messy, you never clean your room. You're telling them to not clean their room by saying that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, and kind of a bridge into what I'd like you to do. First of all, this is correct. That is your website.
Let me just double check it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, looks like it. Yeah.
Can you see it there?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
All right.
Vancrux.com. Yeah, that's it.
What I'd like you to do, if you would, it's almost an hour and a half. This has been an amazing show, dude. I really like it.
Thank you.
Jeffrey here. How should entrepreneurs think differently about mindset? And you just kind of laid it out there. Can you reinforce or what I like to call put some color in between the layers of what we just talked about? And then you still got they just stuck right in there. Almost 400 people. What do you want to leave them with as a final thought? And then I'll throw you back in the green room and I'll wrap this puppy up and I'll meet you back there after a bit. What do you say?
So you say, how should entrepreneurs think differently about mindset? That's the question we're answering, yeah?
Yeah, that's the question. And in that, we were just talking about that, that Pavmanian, that reinforcement. That's the key, I think, to this question. Wouldn't it be for you to answer?
Yeah, I mean, again, general questions, which I love, because we need to think differently about things. And, the question I would ask is, what's your starting point? What's your starting point?
Meaning?
Because this Jeffrey's asked, how should entrepreneurs start thinking differently about mindset? Which says to me a couple of things. Number one is they are an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And they want to fix their mindset. That's what I'm getting from that question. So as an entrepreneur, what type of entrepreneur are you or do you want to be? Are you going to be just an investor finding businesses to invest into? Are you going to be a creator, a founder? Are you going to do one business at a time or multiple? And what is your current starting point of mindset? If your mindset's good, why look at changing it? If it's got you success so far, it might work for you.
Yeah. Versus,
what are your shortfalls? So the question I would ask is to that person,
that one.
What do you think your shortfalls in mindset are, and why? Yeah. And then they would say something like, sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I don't go for things enough. Why do you think that is? I'm scared of the consequences of what's going to happen. Why are you scared of the consequences? Because what if I get judged by my family? So then we found the real thing is that they're scared of being judged by other people. Like, I don't give a shit, right? I've come to this point over probably the last 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. Like, think about it. You're putting content out. There's probably people laughing at me right now, sitting in the car with their mates going, oh, do you remember this guy? Loser. So I actually don't care. I've written books. Think about that. That's like the most invalidatory thing that you could do in terms of you're writing a book and it's out there forever and people can just laugh at it, or a podcast. So in order to do that, you have to have no issue with being judged unfavorably. If you do, then unfortunately you shouldn't do it. But just coming back to actually thinking differently. So there was a Zen koan where there was a student who stole, and it's a great little monastery that they were working in, and all the kids were going, look, we need to get rid of this guy because he's stealing. And the master Banki thought about it, and he says, okay. And the kid stole again. And he says, Banki, come on, we've got to get rid of this guy. He's stealing. And he says, do you know what? This kid does not even know right from wrong. I'm going to keep him. All of you guys know right from wrong. I'm going to keep him even if all of you leave. And what that shows is a different way of looking at it. Most people will just kick that kid out and go, you stole. I'm going to keep this close-knit type community of great little boys because they all, have got their morals intact. But sometimes you have to think differently in order to get somewhere. As the manager, that Banki, he didn't think exclude everyone. Exclude this one guy because he needs to learn. He said, look, I'll exclude all of you because you already know you've already learned your lessons. I'm going to look after this one guy. It's like the monk story as well, again, thinking differently. There's two monks that took the vow, didn't they, to never touch women ever again. and they're standing at the edge of the river, and there's a girl who needs taking over the river. One picks her up, carries her over her shoulder, and puts her down at the other side of the river. Half an hour goes by, and the second monk says to the first monk, "I can't believe you did that. We took the vow and you carried her." He says, "Look, I dropped her back at the river. You're the one who's still carrying her."
Ooh.
So that again, is a different way of thinking about things. What are you still carrying? And that's a big one for me. And that's all stemmed from that question: how can entrepreneurs think differently?
Yeah.
Both of those story examples, you think the story's going one way and it goes another way. And that's actually the right way to be. So sometimes we need to establish where we are and think differently. And the only way to do that is to be outside the box, because you're in the box. Sometimes you have to be outside the box to see the box. And unfortunately, it's not always that easy. Sometimes you need a mirror reflecting it back. So yeah.
Wow, what a great lesson. What a beautiful hour and a half. I mean, so many people are pulling this away. You've got your contact information there. Why don't you give everybody a big wave? I'll hook up back with you on the other side, and let me close this puppy on down, my friend. Awesome job. Awesome job.
Cheers, buddy. It's been a pleasure, and thanks to all the questions that come in and the guests, the listeners. Thanks again.
They're awesome. They're awesome. I'll see you in a sec. All right, man, dudes, guys, gals, everybody. That was really that was a neat show, you know. And as we bring this conversation to a close, I just want to pause for a moment, not to summarize, but just to let it settle. Because what we talked about today with Jeevan isn't something you finish. I think that's kind of becoming evident, isn't it? It's something you practice. Mastery of the mind doesn't happen in a breakthrough, right? It happens in repetition and in reflection. We ended on that very point. In choosing discipline on days motivation doesn't show up, you know? You just gotta, the carrot and the stick we talked about. And that's why conversations like this one matter. Today gave you language for something you've felt but couldn't quite articulate. That's not an accident, guys. If it challenged you, good. Growth almost always does. Now, if this kind of conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you into the broader Insights and Straight Talk community. First, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Rodd Duff 1939. That's how you help independent long-form conversations like this, like ours, continue to exist. Second, join us on Substack. And we publish that 3 days a week with essays, reflections, behind the mic insights, and extended thinking you won't find anywhere else. insightstraighttalk.substack.com. Your support there directly sustains this work. And finally, if today reminded you that becoming a person of value is an ongoing practice, I encourage you to follow Jeevan and explore his work through the Vancrux Label, his writing, his questions, his philosophy, right? You heard a tidbit, a snippet today, and his philosophy are meant to be lived with, not just skimmed. We don't need louder conversations, folks. We need deeper ones. And today was one of them. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for thinking with us. And thank you for supporting independent media that still believes in substance over spectacle. We'll see you next time, right here on Insights and Straight Talk. And remember, stay through the outro. I always do some goofy little thing at the end there. Don't know what it is yet. But with that, I am your host of Insights and Straight Talk. And I'm out of here.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.